Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Jesse, and today it is a cold, rainy, just gray kind of day. As you can tell from the lighting here, it's not the best, but I figured I'd use it today to get into today's story and today's topic. It's good to have kind of that gray atmospheric setting for a story like this. This was a story I wasn't really sure if I should tell, and I had to think on it quite a bit, but I've already told so many stories about the truth and the realities of working at TDCJ prison, I figured, why not? So, today's topic, the sadistic side of corrections. Now, before we get all the melodrama, negative comments, I'll set a little bit of a background and then I'll get into the story. It should come as no surprise to anybody that the individuals that hire on at TDCJ a lot of times are not the most stable of individuals. Now, everybody has their own individual reasons why they want to get into corrections. Some actually believe they're going to make a difference. I applaud that. Others, they need the job. They want the state benefits, the state pay. Some have this notion corrections is never going anywhere. There's always going to be bad guys. There's had to be good guys, and they want to get involved in that. Others, and I experienced this very early on, they hire on simply because they're bullies. They want to beat people up, and they want to get paid for it. And they think that corrections is the place to do that in. And I guarantee you, 100%, there are a lot of individuals that are like that. God, it's dark in here. Okay, well, you can just sit back and listen to the story here. This tale involves a particular individual. Even if I did remember his name, I'd leave it out here. It was a very disturbing situation for me. So, the first time I was introduced to this individual, all right, let's step back just a little bit, collect my thoughts here. This individual was one who worked for the field. Now, the field at TDC, it's a very coveted position. These individuals, they stand out. They wore the standard shirt, but they also wore their 10-gallon cowboy hat. Instead of the Class A trousers or the BDU pants, they wore gray blue jeans. I think they were made by the state because I've never seen a pair of them for sale out here in the free world. They wore those, highly starched, crease going down the legs, which is supposed to be a symbol of a rodeo individual, and cowboy boots. Okay? They looked like your typical standard out of the movies cowboy. They typically worked outside the facility. In the olden days of TDC, they ride horses, and in some units they still do. At the Styles, they didn't. But when I worked up at the Ellis unit, the Eastham unit, where I did a lot of training, they did still ride on horseback, and they would herd rows of inmates going out to work out in the field, either cutting grass, replacing fences, anything that needed outside kind of work. The field bosses were the ones who supervised those. And it stemmed back from the olden days when corrections officers did supervise a lot of the ones outside. Look back to your movies like Brubaker, Cool Hand Luke. Okay, you see the boss on the side of the road with the shotgun and the cowboy hat and the mirrored sunglasses. God, I actually had a pair of those back in the day. Yeah, you'll see them supervising the inmates outside the prison walls. And the ones at TDC, yeah, no different. Now, modern times, things have changed a little bit. It's not quite as prevalent, depending on the units that you're at. At the Styles, the field was pretty much irrelevant. It was cut with the grass outside the facility was cut with tractors. There was no fence line set up. There was a fence around the unit, but it was commercially maintained. So So the days of the field boss riding on horseback were very much gone by that point. It was a symbolic kind of a thing, but they were still there. They did work inside the facility. They worked usually as like utility kind of corrections. They roved around, or they provide backup inside some of the dorms or inside the pods if they were a little bit shorthanded. Anytime I worked with one of these guys that was working with shorthanded, it was an absolute extremely toxic environment. They hated working inside. They'd always brag about they belong outside. They're in the field. I'm sitting there going, dude, it's fucking Beaumont. There ain't no field out here, man. Yeah, there's a grass yard out there, if that's what you want to call your field, and it's about a mile from the highway that goes into the city. So, what kind of field stuff are we going here? But they were there. So, the field bosses, they treated themselves like they were the special forces of TDCJ. Like you got your Army Rangers, your Special Forces, your Force Recon in the Marines, Pararescue in the Air Force. Anytime any of these individuals, I guess, the Navy, okay, the SEALs, whatever. Coast Guard, yeah, we don't play that game. And they would walk around with these attitudes. The very elite, very high up-ish. They had earned that prestige, okay? They had gone through an interview process. They did hire into that position. Nobody just fumbles their way into it. So shout out to that. But what made it really bad was the attitudes that these guys had. And this particular one, he was probably no better than any of the other inmates that wore white. Okay. First time I was introduced to this guy was after my first use of force. It was a fight outside the chow hall. Captain Boykin got attacked by an inmate. I intervened. I was outside patting inmates down. I saw what was going on, and I dove in as backup. The boss who was working the center gate, she sat in the center of the passageway, and she electronically controlled the gates as inmates would pass and go by. She saw what was going on. She called it out on the radio. When use of force is called out, if the unit only has 20 corrections officers working, 200 of them show up out of freaking nowhere. They start jumping out of the walls, climbing out of bushes, rappelling down from the sky. You're like, where were all of you in turnout when we only had 12 of us ready to run buildings, and now there's 30, 40 of you guys coming out of nowhere? What the fuck? So, when that call went out, man, COs were every freaking where. I got beat up more by the COs jumping on top of me than I was the actual inmate who was on top of me there. It would have been better just him and I. So the fight got done. The fight got subdued. Cool. We get the guy up. We get him in hand restraints. There's a sergeant walking with me, and there's a field boss walking with me. His cowboy hat kind of caught me out of the side of the eye. He's helping me escort the guy, and the sergeant who's walking with us, he's reading through the standard use of force from there. All right, so we get ourselves set up. We get the inmate put in where he needs to be. He's in the back of medical. We go into our area, and it's time to start filling out our statement. Now, I've already done a video about how the statement went. You can check that one out in the archives. This one is about this individual. And as I'm filling out my statement, I put in that officer, whatever his name was, had relieved me. And he goes, whoa, stop right there. I didn't relieve you out of anything. Yeah, you took over, you helped pull the guy off of me, and you did take over. You were the one who put the hand restraints. Yeah, but I didn't relieve you from the attack. That was still you. Okay, man. Cool, good, whatever. And conversation just kind of went on from there. I had introduced myself. He told me what his name was. I said, well, how long have you worked here? A little over 19 months. Yeah, I'm just here for the fight, man. I said, what? Oh, yeah. Yeah, all this bullshit going on here, this admin stuff, this just bullshit. We should just be able to beat these guys down, and it'd make it a lot easier on everybody. That's what I'm here for. All right, dude. Cool. You been in many use of forces? Just about every shift I come on here, man. Hey, you want to learn about use of force? You work with me. Let's get you fucking around, man. There ain't no way. Man, every day that I come to work, I don't get into a fight. That's a fucking failure on me. Let me tell you something. I'm gonna straighten all these guys out. Motherfucker pieces of shit. And he just kind of went on. I'm not gonna use the words here on YouTube, but he just trailed off about how all he wanted to do was beat these guys up, get into fights. I was like, so you realize there's like 2,000 of these guys? I didn't know how many there were at the time. You realize there's like 2,000 of these guys and not that many of us? He stops and looks at me. God, I wish I could say on here, but I've already been called out for the profanity that I use on this. Needless to say, the words that he used to me, he basically called me an effing P word. Corrections. And I'm not going to make it here. Dude got up, he left the room. And I'm staring at the dude as he walked out. I was thinking he's going to turn around and be like, I'm just kidding, man. Hey, come on. No. Dude was absolutely serious. The look in this guy's face, his eyes, his expression was just cold. Absolutely cold. Now, it wasn't quite as disturbing from the inmates. I expected it from them. They were in there for crimes that they had committed. This guy, dude, how he hadn't gotten caught or busted or written up for what was going on in there, and I guarantee you, dude wasn't joking around in the least bit. It chilled me quite a bit. Now, I was rookie. I was day one rookie, okay? And I still had a very positive opinion of corrections officers. I still do. Don't get me wrong. The veteran COs that are walking the tiers, that are standing the watch, shout out to you guys. But we always call it the 10%. Okay, there's those 10%ers that are just odd. It's like the first pancake you make of the batch. It's just fucking different. And this guy was definitely different. All right. I didn't see the guy for quite a while. It wasn't until I was really, what was it? I'd finally been assigned to SEG and was working the building. They had suicide watches at the unit. Suicide watch was an individual, if the inmate had threatened suicide, they basically took everything away from him, put him in a gown, kind of like a hospital gown. It didn't have any arms. It went around and it velcroed in the back. So if they tried to do anything with it, it just fell apart. They couldn't hang themselves with it, couldn't hurt themselves with it. They were put in a cell and they had absolutely nothing. Okay, just that thing around them and the metal bunk that they laid on. There was a toilet. Toilet didn't have any water in it, and the sink didn't work. That way they couldn't drown themselves. But they had somewhere that they could at least shit or piss. And there was a CO who would sit in a chair, just like I'm doing, and stare at this guy. I think it might have been 8-hour shifts. I don't remember exactly. I never had to do suicide watch, thank God. But after the first hour, if you think it's boring, add 7 more to that. You're just sitting staring. And they had a log that they had to maintain. I don't remember how often it was. It might have been something like every 30 minutes. They would make a log entry of what the offender did. Offender Jones lying in the rack. 30 minutes later. Offender Jones walking around cell. Okay? They'd log whatever kind of actions they did. If they tried to hurt themselves, they were there to intervene. They'd get on the radio, call out, supervisor, whatever, come in and break it up. The next time I saw this dude, he was sitting in the chair, staring in the cell. And I'm making my security rounds. He looks up at me, I looked at him, we recognized each other. Made this look, you still here? I looked at him. What are you doing inside my pod? Yeah. Alpha Squad getting started right there. And he sits back. I'm here looking at this motherfucking piece of shit, ready for him to kill himself. And he leans forward and he bangs on the door. Hey, what you waiting on, motherfucker? And it just echoes throughout the room. And I'm like, oh man, this guy ain't gotten any fucking better right there. Made a round. Didn't say anything. Okay. Made my round. And as I came back around, the dude's leaned forward in his chair and he's got his face up to the door and he's whispering shit to him. Hey man, I bet you won't do it. No, you won't do it, will you? Good, come on, do it. Too many of y'all in here anyway. Come on, man. He's whispering to the guy, trying to get him to kill himself. And I'm like, there ain't no way this ain't right. I didn't want to snitch on the guy. I really didn't. But likewise, I didn't want somebody to freaking kill themselves inside the pod that I was in charge of. I go over the picket, call the picket boss over to me like, hey, try and get Raymond on the radio. I need to speak with him. All right. Call Lieutenant Raymond. Lieutenant Raymond's pretty good about responding to stuff. Like, make another round. Dude's still sitting there talking to the guy. Like, man, the cameras are all over this dude. How is this even going by? Lieutenant Raymond comes by, like, hey Lou, hey man, the boss that's over there on suicide watch, hey man, this ain't right. He's trying to get him to hurt himself. Carter, I know all about it. It's taken care of. Roger that, Lou. Turns around and leaves. Okay, I go back to doing my rounds. He sat there for, I don't know, he might have been there just a couple more hours, and then finally somebody came and relieved him. I never saw the guy again. I don't know if he got fired. I don't know if he got walked off, if he got transferred, or whatnot. I do know later on that the guy that he was talking to, this happened on the night shift. I found out about it the night before. This guy did try to kill himself. Started banging his head against the wall. All right. The CO started trying to talk him out of it, started yelling at him. By the time they actually got the door open, dude had beat his head against the wall so much. Apparently he's found laying down in the cell on the floor. Freaking pool of blood. They couldn't just pop the door and go in and get him. That's violation of policy. But yet it's okay for the dude to sit there and beat his head against the wall till he almost kills himself. Yeah, that's real life, folks. You can't make this kind of stuff up. So this probably wasn't one of the more entertaining videos that I've had. Just kind of in a mood and wanted to get this one off my chest. Think of this as like a dear diary. I hope it did entertain some individuals. If it offended anybody, amen. You're watching a prison podcast. That's what it's all about. Folks, take care of yourselves. Everyone be safe.